Masai and Zainab Ismail.
Glad you could join us. David Agundoa is joining us as well in the presentation of News in Sign Language. Thank you for your time. Now, first story, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiujuri was today questioned by DCI detectives over the Aror and Kimwarer Dam scandals.
Kiujuri, who drove himself to the DCI headquarters and was questioned shortly after devolution, CS Eugene Wamalwa had been questioned, insists that allegations against him are part of a wider scheme to tarnish his name.
Both cabinet secretaries denied involvement in the 21 billion shilling scandal. NTV's Setolale reports.
Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiujuri arrived at the DCI headquarters without his lawyer, aides and official bodyguards. Kiujuri, who received the invitation to appear before detectives of the DCI via a text message on Wednesday, said that there was a deliberate plot to tarnish his name through corruption allegations.
I've been dragged through the mud for the last 7 months. From the story of the maize scandal, then sugar scandal, then the fertilizer scandal, and now the dams. I always wonder, with this kind of a system of government that we have, with the National Intelligence Service that is respected in Africa and worldwide, for you to be summoned, there must be enough evidence, or when you are being dragged, and as a minister.
The cabinet secretary, who was at the DCI headquarters for 32 minutes, says he has already been prosecuted, judged guilty and convicted in the court of public opinion over the alleged 21 billion shillings Aror and Kimwarer Dam scandal.
What I'm going through definitely is creating permanent dents, permanent injury, permanent damage in my career and my reputation. And it will be left on me alone to try and clean up the mess.
Kiujuri further urged the relevant institutions mandated to guard against corruption not to be politically influenced while delivering on their mandate.
I'll be patient. I can assure you, whoever is through my way, I will face them with a lot of determination, courage and patience.
Earlier on, his devolution counterpart Eugene Wamalwa was grilled by detectives for 50 minutes after arriving at 9 a.m. Wamalwa told interrogators that the dams in question were not under his jurisdiction.
They were originally the Ministry of Water and Environment. When I entered that Ministry of Water, they had been moved to the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources.
Director of Criminal Investigations George Kinoti is investigating whether senior government officials received kickbacks amounting to 4 billion shillings from Italian firm CMC di Ravenna that was contracted to build the 2 dams in Elgeyo Marakwet County. Seth Olale, NTV.
And 3 Vihiga County officers manning the payroll unit have been arrested after irregularities were found in the department.
The county says the duo's arrest was prompted by changes in statutory deductions through removal and introduction of employees on payroll without following the right procedures.
The county executive in charge of public service and administration, Paul Mbuni, said that the payroll system was being logged into as early as 3 a.m. and one of the officers even included his wife on the payroll, yet she is not an employee of the county.
Alterations on the system have seen the county government lose millions of shillings of taxpayers' money to ghost workers. Wonders never cease, and it's desperate times for thousands of residents in Turkana region who are facing starvation are in need of relief food.
Farms have dried up, and not only so, but women and school-going children have to walk for long distances in search of water. Now Mckenna reports on the desperation of the Turkana people.
A seemingly endless, dusty road is illustrative of the dire situation in Turkana. The biting drought is punishing and does not favor even the animals. School-going children can only muster enough strength to fetch water from what was left of the rains.
Maji hakuna hapa. Nyasi hakuna kwa hapa. Hapa kiu na malisa mbuzi pamoja na watu pamoja na watoto wa shule.
Mama wameenda upande anaitwa Akatumani kutafuta mkoma. Kujaza kwa kalakala ndio waletea watoto yao jioni.
For over a year now, there have been no rains to water these fields in their community. The land is dry.
2017 njia ilikuwa kati kamili, lakini kwa wakati huu 2019 njia imesidi.
Residents here have panicked. Not only has the drought caused them agony, their farms cannot produce, but also a locust infestation has led to the drying up of all the vegetation.
Ni wadede inakula matawa ya miti, saa ile mvua inanyesha, alafu miti inabaki hivyo, alafu mbuzi inapata kufa kwa sababu hiyo nyasi ya miti na ya chini wadede imemaliza. Tumekosa njia ya kuchungwa mvuko.
Residents in these areas fearing for their lives if nothing is done to salvage their situation.
Kama mvua imekosekana, sasa hakuna njia nyingine ya kuangalia, ni kuangalia tu serikali, kutoka kwa serikali ya chini ya county mpaka kwa serikali kuu.
Approximately 800,000 of Turkana County's 1.2 million people in the 6 constituencies need food urgently. Melmiendo, NTV.
The situation is so dire that a roaming elephant seeking to quench its thirst was found lying helplessly on the shores of the dry river Kerio in Baringo North.
The river is said to be drying up after human encroachment in Lake Kapnarop Game Reserve, which has left the land bare and unfavorable for wildlife.
The area is expected to experience worsened human-animal conflict over dependence on the few water pools along the drying river,
which hosts hundreds of elephants, has also been hit hard by the dry spell.
Kame iko mingi na machi, hakuna machi mali penye hao wanyama wangekaa. Ile chambo ambaye ninataka kumwambia kama county government ya Baringo ya kwamba waweze kuchimba madams kwa huko conservancy yenye huko Lake Kapnarop, waweze kutengeneza mali hao wanyama wanaweza kukaa.
And just in case you've been feeling it's a bit hot, we'll be hearing from Wajir, where actually parents are asking for their students to go to class or actually leave class a bit earlier because of the extreme weather conditions. And educationists in Wajir are asking the government to excuse students from afternoon class due to extreme temperatures experienced in the county for the last few days.
And the Met Department recorded temperatures of 40.4 degrees on Thursday last week, the highest since 2015.
Wajir County is reeling from extremely high temperatures, especially in the afternoons. In an area where high temperatures are the norm, Wajir is experiencing a new normal. The maximum temperature recorded in Wajir last Friday, 40.2. On Saturday, it was 39.1. On Sunday, it was 40.4. On Monday, it was 39.7. On Tuesday, it was 39.4. Locals are finding these unusual figures scary.
Tokea saa 7:30 mpaka saa 12 ya jioni ndio tunapumzisha. Saa zingine tunaweza oga mara 2 ama mara 3 kwa siku. Kutokea dhuhuri mpaka saa 12.
Residents have been using all possible means to seek shelter from the extreme heat. They wake up as early as 5 a.m., attend to their duties, and then break from noon to 5 p.m. to finalize today's activities. Parents now want the government to adopt similar measures for the younger ones in schools.
The sun is so hot to an extent whereby teaching children during the afternoon lessons becomes so hard, whereby there is low concentration on the side of the learners.
When we come at school, in walking by foot, it's very difficult at us. It's very difficult. We don't have water in this school.
Educationists are recommending that learning in schools start at 7 a.m. and ends by 1 p.m. to allow students seek shelter from the scorching afternoon sun.
If that is not adhered to, anything that happens in the school, we will hold the ministry completely responsible.
Meteorologists say that with the extreme temperature, one cannot rule out possibility of penetration of harmful radiation from the sun. Nurtin Almoge, NTV, Wajir County.
Wow, 40 and above degrees Celsius.
That's pretty high considering what's in Nairobi right now. People are complaining about the temperatures, because just a quick look at weather.com and you would see that today was 27 degrees, highs of 27 degrees. Tomorrow it will be 28 degrees. Now you understand why the parents and the educationists are asking for their students to leave class early at weather levels of 40 point. So let's get to other developments of the day.
The High Court has ruled that the low capping interest rates is unconstitutional, paving way for the country's exit from the regime, which has negatively impacted access to credit.
Kenyans will, however, have to wait for 12 months before feeling the impact of the ruling on their borrowing ability.
Section 33B of the Banking Amendment Act of 2016 came into force on September 14, 2016, setting a cap on interest rates charged by commercial banks. The capping was placed at 4 percentage points above the central bank lending rate. This move was meant to afford ordinary borrowers relief from high costs of accessing credit, but the results, if empirical studies are anything to go by, have been the opposite. In its March 2018 study on the impact of rate caps on the economy, the central bank found that the law has had 3 significant outcomes. 1. It has undermined monetary policy and the ability of the central bank to influence economic activity. 2. It has compelled banks to focus more on lending to the government at the expense of ordinary citizens and businesses. 3. It has seen some banks hike fees and commissions as a means to cushion themselves against declining income from interest rates.
There was an amendment to sections 33B1 and B2 of the Banking Act. And so our decision will lay emphasis on the complaints raised in respect to capping. We then posed or crafted the following issues for determination. 1. Do the provisions of Section 33B infringe on the mandate of CBK under Article 231(2) of the Constitution?
Over this period, loans have become increasingly inaccessible for borrowers deemed to be high risk, largely affecting households and small businesses. Data from the Central Bank of Kenya shows that whereas in the first half of 2016, credit growth to the private sector averaged 14%, this growth declined to as low as 6% by the second half of 2018 as commercial banks tightened lending, locking out perceived high-risk borrowers. Commercial banks have certainly been some of the most aggrieved parties by the law capping lending rates, and in the recent past, depressed interest income has seen an emerging trend of consolidation among small players, with the most recent case being the merger between NIC and CBA banks. Pressure for repeal of the law capping interest rates has not only come from the central bank. The International Monetary Fund has been vocal in its critique of the law and called for its immediate elimination or modification in its October 2018 review of Kenya's economic environment. In its ruling today, the High Court stated that the law capping interest rates is unconstitutional to the degree that it is imprecise and vague. The court, however, gives a 12-month window to allow for amendment of the regulation in place. This implies that the prevailing interest rate environment remains in force until about March 2020, before any new changes can take effect. Today's ruling notwithstanding, a number of questions remain. 1. Will Parliament, which has rejected similar proposed amendments in the past, allow this to see the light of day? And 2. Could the amendment, as directed by the High Court, assume forms other than the repeal of the cap on lending rates? Julians Amboko, NTV.
From that report, we need to get your opinion on this and whether you support the High Court ruling that has said that it is unconstitutional to have the current interest rate cap. So do you support the High Court ruling on interest rate caps?
You can tweet us on our Twitter handle at NTV Kenya, subsequently at Zainab Ismail and at Masai. The hashtag is NTV Tonight. We'd like to hear your thoughts on that. We'd like to repeat that. Do you support the High Court's ruling on that interest rate cap? Well, we'd like to hear from you, and we'll be able to sample some of your views during the course of this live broadcast.
Now, there was another court ruling today, and no, this is not the subject of opinion counts question, but this ruling may have just, dealt a huge blow to efforts to curb drink driving on Kenyan roads. A ruling by Lady Justice Mumbua Madheka indicates that an offense is only committed when a driver fails to control a vehicle due to inebriation.
This could now force police to employ and deploy more resources in collecting evidence if such cases have to stand and lead to convictions. And as Ken Mijungu reports, this ruling could also have devastating effects on efforts to check road carnage.
The landmark ruling stems from a case where one George Wambugu, a motorist, challenged a 100,000 shilling fine imposed by a magistrate's court after he confessed to having been caught drunk while driving. He subsequently appealed this case, and Judge Mumbua Madheka set aside the earlier verdict, but this was not the first. Kiambu Magistrate Brian Haemba had also ruled that driving while drunk was not in itself a traffic offence unless and until it can be demonstrated the driver was not in control of the motor vehicles. These rulings, if not appealed successfully, will set the judicial precedents that can be used in court by future offenders. But again, not everyone who is caught having exceeded the legal limits end up in court. Some prefer instant fines, while others have managed to talk or bribe their way out of the situation. Only informed offenders have utilized the loophole of credible evidence to beat the police breathalyzers. Police have been discredited in court for lacking the ability to medically determine someone is drunk. Even when arrested beyond the limits, only the breathalyzer reading is relied upon, but that can be challenged too due to the fact that alcohol tolerance in individuals differ, such that one may exceed the limit but still have the ability to act and think rationally. This is a reason why these cases that end up in court are won. However, the rule does not apply to PSV drivers where the requirement is 0 levels of alcohol in the blood at any time while on duty. With this ruling, police may be forced to stop mounting impromptu roadblocks along major roads leading to and from recreational centers. Friday and Saturday nights have been huge nightmare to motorists who drive while drunk. Often they are caught and forced to spend the night in police cells. Some end up in court, others are fined instantly, while others manage to talk their way out of trouble. Alternatively, the police may be forced to employ more tactics in evidence collection. They may be required to have doctors on site who will ascertain the level of alcohol. They may also be forced to prove that aside from being drunk, the offender was unable to control the machine or the motor vehicle, something that will not be easy. This also portends danger as more motorists will be on the road drunk, spelling danger not only to themselves but also to other road users. In 2017, the National Transport and Safety Authority reported that more than 2,800 drivers were charged with offences, some relating to drink driving, a huge drop from the 2016 statistics. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
President Uhuru Kenyatta's nominee for the Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, has vowed to successfully deliver the new competency-based education curriculum and deliver reforms in the education sector if his nomination as Cabinet Secretary is approved by Parliamentary Committee on Appointments. NTV's Vincent Odur with the details.
Professor George Magoha appeared before the Committee of Appointments of the National Assembly, where he said that his main goal for accepting the nomination is to actualize and implement much-needed reforms in the education sector.
If you want me to serve political interest, with all due respect and humility,
I am the wrong person for that appointment. I would like to see Kenya as a nation.
Corruption is one of the vices that Magoha has vowed to deal with in the sector.
My courage must be coming from God, because I'm not afraid of anybody. If I find that you are earning money that is not yours, it is a choice that you have made on your own, and you must therefore face the consequences.
The trained surgeon and professor of urology says another goal will be to ensure successful implementation of the new competence-based education curriculum that will play a big role in dealing with unemployment, especially among the youth.
That is going to be addressed by the new curriculum, because the child will be taught how to select what he is good at.
Some members of the committee called on Magoha to resolve the controversial teachers' performance contracts and the delocalization policy that have been opposed by teachers' unions, causing wrangles with the Teachers' Service Commission.
This is a matter that teachers are really suffering. We know families have suffered, families have separated.
What is it that is special with teachers? I need to be told as a scholar, because I then have to smell the area and look at it and make a decision that is in the best interest of everybody else.
You find a school with a head teacher and a deputy head teacher, and the school has 8 classes.
I will endeavor to ensure that every Kenyan child, as much as is possible, is given the same standard of education as is required by the Constitution.
For a while now, Magoha has been known for his no-nonsense style of leadership.
I am going to start with the objective that I want, then involve all the stakeholders in that pathway. Some I shall agree with, some I will not agree with. I don't expect, if we agree with everybody, then one of you must be either a fool or one is cheating.
The NEC chairman is set to replace former Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed, who was transferred to the Ministry of Sports. He also served as the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Nairobi for 10 years.
After the vetting, the Committee on Appointments has now retreated to do a report which will be tabled on the floor of the National Assembly for members to approve or reject. Vincent Odur, NTV, Nairobi.
All right, and more than 1,000 teachers have been sacked by the Teachers Service Commission in the last 8 years over immoral behavior towards students. In a report presented before the Senate Standing Committee on Education, Teachers Service Commission CEO Nancy Macharia tabled a list of 6 counties with the highest numbers. And today we begin with that total number of the teachers that have been found guilty of having sexually harassed students between 2010 and 2018. Now, the report indicates that TSC had also upheld the removal of 279 teachers from the teachers' register, and interestingly, all the 1,077 teachers interdicted so far are men. And we begin with breaking down that number for you. Now, Kakamega County takes the lead with 88 cases of teachers who molested students. Then comes Kisii with 61 cases. Homa Bay comes next with 60 cases. Kitui County with 53 cases. Bungoma County with 47 cases and Siaya County with 46 cases. Now, other counties that have also been listed but with lesser cases of student molestation include Wajir with 1 case, West Pokot with 3 cases, Tana River with 4 cases, Nairobi with 3 cases, Mandera 1 case, and Mombasa 4 cases. Now, TSC CEO Nancy Macharia says despite the existence of a sound legal framework, sex pests continue to take advantage of the tender rage of learners to prey on them, saying many cases went unreported because of ignorance on the part of parents and guardians and the cultural challenges in some communities that frustrate efforts to prosecute sex offenders. And still sticking on the sensitive and disturbing issue, nominated Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha says he will deal firmly with teachers caught defiling pupils and students if he is confirmed to the CS job. He expressed his displeasure with the tutors who not only abuse the minors but in some cases impregnate the girls.
May God protect you if I give you my child, where I represent the government, and the child is 9 years, and you tell that child to open her legs for you, may God protect you. That is what I'm going to do immediately as we move, because I'm going to be moving around. But going forward, we require stakeholder engagement so that the children are actually aware of their bodies, because they have access to their bodies elsewhere where they don't have informed, and that's my opinion. That's what I'm saying. You will be involved, Honorable Pasaris, through the Speaker, that you will have as input. So whichever method we decide to apply to our children will be acceptable.
And on that note, we take a quick break. We'll be back with much more.
Thank you for staying with us. Kenyan families in Ethiopia are demanding clarity on the way forward in the identification and recovery of the bodies of their loved ones who died in the Ethiopian flight ET302 that crashed Sunday morning.
Two meetings have taken place today between the Kenyan embassy and the families seem to have left the grieving families more confused. NTV's Charity Mwangi is in Ethiopia and has filed the following report.
They keep pushing blames from one agency to another. The airline is telling us it's the government. We are telling them to commit themselves that they'll bring the government on board. Since they are putting to it that to us that the DNA samples are in possession of the government and the Ministry of Health. We are requesting them to bring along the government or the Ministry of Health representative, and they are not really committing themselves.
Well, our reporter Charity Mwangi is in Ethiopia and will be filing a more detailed report on the situation on the ground. And a top priority for the air crash investigators is to locate and analyze the Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 8 two black boxes, which hold vital clues to what caused it to go down, killing all 157 people on board.
The airline said on Thursday that the black box flight recorders from the plane had been flown to Paris for analysis by France's Aviation Investigation and Analysis Agency. It is uncertain how much of their content touched the polished cutlery unused.
A Chinese couple broke down in a corner of the expansive lobby, unable to contain the horror of emotions boiling inside their chests. Grieving strangers moved to comfort each other in hugs and uneasy embraces.
Councillors lined the corridors, tension wafted the high ceiling, and then there was pain. Such unspeakable, unimaginable pain. Welcome to Skylight Hotel in Addis Ababa, where families of the victims of the Ethiopian Airlines crash are being hosted.
The Daily Nation accompanied tens of Kenyans who flew to Addis Ababa this morning, hoping to return with the remains of their loved ones over the weekend. But Ethiopian authorities had a bombshell announcement for them on arrival. There might not be any remains to bury.
What happens next? Get the complete story of pain, shock, and fury in the Daily Nation tomorrow.
Indeed, we do not want to miss that report there on the Daily Nation. But away from that, police have arrested a man suspected of involvement in the murder and burial of Agnes Mckenna, whose body was exhumed from her home in Kandisi in Rongai on Tuesday morning.
Post-mortem examination results showed that Agnes Mckenna was stabbed 5 times, causing her death. NTV's Helen Aura with more.
Distressed, still trying to come to terms with the death of a dear friend, whose body was exhumed from her home in Rongai. Agnes Mckenna used to run a motor vehicle spare parts business from this shop in Rongai town. A trader in a neighboring shop was close to Mckenna.
Hakuwa na grant na mtu. Very social woman, very polite.
Witnesses say Mckenna closed her shop on Wednesday evening last week at around 6 p.m. and waved goodbye to her friends. In routine fashion, she told them they would see each other the next day. Little did they know that that was the last time they would see, let alone hear from Mckenna.
It was on a Thursday. Hajafungua job, nikashindwa ameenda wapi. Kafungua tu nikaendelea na kazi zangu. Nikamaliza kazi by 11:37 nikachukua phone. Nikampigia simu. Akakuwa mteja.
On Friday, the trader from the neighboring shop saw Mckenna's shop open and thought that her friend had resurfaced.
Nikaonea duka ya Mckenna imefunguliwa. Kaa niko hapo tunakuja. Niliona kijana tall, black, Muslim hivi. Nikastuka.
The deceased sister called the trader to ask about her sister's whereabouts. The trader then said that she had not seen her, but notified the sister that there was someone at her shop. And when the sister spoke to the stranger on phone, courtesy of Mckenna's neighbor, he quickly left.
Nikasikia huyu vile alifungua mlango sasa akakanyanga nje. Nikamuuliza kwani unaenda wapi? Akaniambia nafika hapa chini. Nikaita kijana mwingine wa motorbike. Nikamwambia hebu fuata huyu kijana uone mahali anaenda. Sasa huyu kijana wakafuatana tu. Saa kufika pale ndio kijana alikimbia.
A week later, after a vigorous search, this happened.
Nikiwa kwa nyumba sasa, mama Fikia alinipigia simu. Kaniambia they have killed Mckenna.
The post-mortem examination results indicate that Mckenna was stabbed 5 times on her backside and front. One suspect is in police custody, with the police still hunting down the other suspects. The suspect will be arraigned on Wednesday next week.
The mystery behind Agnes Mckenna's death continues to raise eyebrows, even as authorities still try to put the pieces of the puzzle together. On the other hand, her friends and family want justice to prevail. Helen Aura, NTV, Rongai, Kajiado.
From those families demanding justice for their loved one in Rongai to Kenyan families in Ethiopia who are demanding clarity on the way forward in the identification and recovery of the bodies of their loved ones who died in the Ethiopian flight ET302 that crashed Sunday morning. 2
meetings that have taken place today between the Kenyan embassy and the families seems to have left the grieving families more confused. NTV's Charity Mwangi is in Ethiopia and has filed the following report.
At the Skylight Hotel within the Bole Airport, the situation was tense, with families of those who perished in flight ET302 clearly anxious about the handling of the identification process of the remains of their loved ones, and also the site visits that have become few and unsatisfactory.
These are my children. That is the Minister of Health, the Civil Aviation. I'm asking them a very simple question. Why don't you bring them here? And they give us the answers that we want. Because we don't want to stay here.
The family members say that they are tired of the runaround that they are receiving from the airline and the Kenyan embassy, with no entity ready to commit to the resolution of the situation. The families are alive to the fact that the bodies are badly fragmented, but say that there is need for closure that only the government and the airline can provide. The last meeting was concluded at 5:30, with some of the families agreeing to participate in a requiem mass, with others opting to skip what they termed as a charade. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
From that report by Charity Mwangi, who will be giving us more updates from Addis Ababa on the families falling up after their loved ones. Let's recap just before we take a break on the opinion counts question. We asked, do you support the High Court ruling on interest rate caps? And Mr. Critic, you say, talk about hunger. Haisaidi, the more than 1 million Kenyan facing hunger is something you'd want more attention on. And trust you me, we will keep an eye on that. John Okot, you say, how can I support it? Though naive citizens are suffering. Dylan Nyariki, you say, I don't support this because these banks make a lot of profits from our pockets day and night.
Interesting. And of course, we'd like to get more feedback from you. Remember, our Twitter handle is at NTV Kenya. Subsequently, at Zainab Ismail, at Masai, the hashtag NTV Tonight. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Dan Mwangi with the day's business stories.
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. I'm Dan Mwangi. Now, the public service vehicle stakeholders have opposed the government's proposal to regulate fares, saying it will kill the sector. The industry players rubbished the proposed amendment, to the Traffic Act and the National Transport and Safety Authority (NTSA) Act, seeking to control PSV fares across the country, insisting that the industry should be left to operate in line with the supply and demand forces. Lillian Carrier was across various bus stops to get the public's take and filed this report.
It's a debate that has elicited mixed reactions, with on one hand, the public service vehicle operators fighting to maintain their independence while setting fares, while on the other hand, the public is fighting to have their fares not irregularly hiked.
Huwa inabidi wakati mwingine dereva anajifunga mshipi, anakuja nyau mpaka Nairobi kuchukua wale abiria. So siwezi choma mafuta nikuje nichukue abiria na 300.
Unapata mafuta wameweka bei ya juu, wanateremsha kidogo. Sasa ukiweka maximum kama ni 100 na mafuta ikipanda itakuwa ngumu kidogo.
Inastahili regulate vile tunaweza kuwa na standard charges. Kukua kuna mvua, hakuna mvua, weather ikuwe namna gani.
Matatu Owners Association Chairman Simon Kimutai says the proposal by Cabinet Secretary of Transport James Macharia is ill-informed because the government has no right to control privately owned transport systems.
I don't know where the minister is coming from. So I would say he's in bad taste. He needs to have a conversation with experts in public transport because he doesn't understand whatsoever the costing in public transport. You know, when an economy is liberalized, what dictates is demand and supply. If the government wants to regulate fares, they have to provide subsidies because regulation will always make it stick there and people might not realize profits.
If approved, the government will set the formula for establishing the fare tariff and issue a penalty for non-compliance, a move that the industry protests. Lillian Carrier, NTV.
The French government will invest about 283 billion shillings into financing and supporting startups and micro, small and medium-sized enterprises over the next 4 years under the Choose Africa initiative. Victor Kiprop has the details on the funds and other deals worth billions of shillings sealed during the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron, mainly in the entrepreneurship, health and education sectors.
The funds, which will be managed by the French Development Agency and its private sector financing arm Propaco, are intended to support close to 10,000 African businesses at various stages of their development.
Close to almost 80% of our people are involved in the informal sector. So assisting that sector to formalize is the other area that is a major concern to us as a government.
In his trip, largely seen as an attempt by Western countries to slow China's growing influence in Africa, President Macron also joined the World Bank and other institutions at the One Planet Summit in making large financial pledges to support environmental conservation.
We take the first Africa's pledge. This is so important because this is the best evidence of the fact that it is not just something for the Western world. Africa is key for this fight. Because in Africa you have the first direct impacts of climate change. I think about Lake Chad, for instance.
Climate change continues to be a major threat to sustainable development worldwide. Its impact places disproportionately a heavy burden on the poor and vulnerable. We must therefore integrate climate action and sustainable development in our collective efforts to achieve the objectives under the Paris Agreement.
Despite contributing to just 4% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions, the World Bank estimates that at least 65% of Africa's population is already reeling from the ravages of climate change. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business at the United Nations headquarters.
When French President Emmanuel Macron visited the Nairobi Railway Central Station on Wednesday, a deal was struck that a French consortium will be awarded a tender to build a commuter rail between the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and the Nairobi Central Business District. It is a project scheduled for completion in the next 2 years, and Alex Mwangi now looks at what such a rail would mean for the city's transport system.
The management of Kenya Railways is seeking to find the optimal use of the 150 kilometers of rail tracks that exist in the city of Nairobi. The planned introduction of diesel multiple units to provide commuter rail services is the next way to go.
We'll be able to accommodate about 300 people in every journey. And you remember there's dropping out and dropping in. That means you can translate that number to around 600 people in one trip. With 11 DMUs, we'll be able to move and clear most of the routes.
French President Emmanuel Macron on Wednesday visited Nairobi's Central Railway Station off Haile Selassie Avenue as a show of commitment to the project to build a dedicated line to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
It is a PPP project where there is a consortium of very world well-known firms are going to invest in the line. The line will be doubled to make sure that the speed for the DMUs, what we call diesel multiple units, the speed is high. For us to have a speed of about 7 kilometers per hour to 80 kilometers per hour, we will come up with a new modernized railway line, which will start from Nairobi Station to JKIA.
For many years, getting to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport from the Central Business District has been a hassle as far as time is concerned. Once the project to construct the 23-kilometer railway line is complete, Kenyans will be able to make that journey in just 15 minutes.
We will begin operating on a meet-and-gauge railway line. But once this investment comes in, we will modernize the railway line into what we call a standard gauge railway line to accommodate those speeds. The program for JKA line is that when it is completed with the new designs, it will be electrified.
According to Mainga, the project should take 2 years to complete. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Now from midnight, you'll expect to pay more for your fuel, be it petrol or diesel or kerosene, because according to the latest ERC review, the price of super petrol goes up by 1 shilling and 26 cents per litre. That of diesel goes up by 65 cents per litre. And kerosene is going to cost you more by 2 shillings and 96 cents per litre. That is according to the latest review by the ERC, the Energy Regulatory Commission, on their monthly review. My name is Dan Mwangi. Have yourself a good night. That's it for business.
We're glad you could stay with us. Now, 10% of the sanitary pads that are in the Kenyan market are bad, as they have failed the Kenya Bureau of Standards compliance test.
KEB says it has tested 135 samples from all brands in the Kenyan market and only 90% made the cut.
5 Always sanitary towel brands have been handed a clean bill of health. Curiously missing from the list is Safe Pads, which is Always Cotton Soft Pink, which is a new brand locally.
The Bureau says that it is still being subjected to further tests. The outcome of the analysis is set to determine the next course of action, including market withdrawal of any substandard products.
However, the revelation that there are bad pads in circulation is a cause for concern, as consumers are left uncertain of whether the product they have bought falls under the 10% or the 90%.
We take another break. Sports is up next with Sean Carter-Willis.
A very good evening to you. The latest sports news. I'm Sean Carter-Willis. The magical Kenya Open presented by ABSA teed off Thursday morning at the Karen Country Club. And at the end of day one, Kenyan golf fans had a reason to smile as Simon Ngige fired an impressive 68 to live, 4 shots behind joint leaders Jack Singh Bra and Louis de Jager. Dismas Ndisa turned back the years to shoot a 69, while Justice Maboya was level par. I walked the greens.